What's up, everybody? You're back with The Chosen Con. And today in the studio, we have my friend, older sister, mentor, Sukhvinder Vinning, right? It's been a year since we've met, and
Yes.
it's been one hell of a ride.
Yeah.
So how was your, experience on the podcast today?
It was really good. A lot easier than I thought. I was worried that with my concussion, I would be struggling a lot more.
Yeah.
And I know there were parts where I was like, oh, I just forgot what I was going to say, but it was fine. You picked it up and went from there. So that was great.
That was incredible. Like, I'm serious. So 55 minutes went by like that. Like, it was quick. I was like, damn it,
But that's our norm, though, when we get talking.
So me and Sukhvinder, we have a lot of coffees together, and then we've gone to events, but it's like, when we do have those coffees, you're right, it's just like we're on this wavelength, and we just start discussing things. And what really drew me to you was interfaith was our first thing.
Yes.
Right? So in the podcast, we talk about your life in brief, just like when you were young. But then we really dived into this whole interfaith aspect and what's going on in the world right now. So I guess the first thing we can talk about is what happened in 2017. Like, what happened? What would you say that really woke people up?
Well, the Trump election, the American election.
Yeah.
That was a fascinating thing to observe. There was a lot of people that went into denial and didn't want that this could possibly be possible. But I want to say there were others like ourselves who saw the election as a sign that all those hidden things that were out of sight, out of mind, that we could sometimes pretend didn't really happen and exist. That, oh no, we all get along, and women have achieved equality, and there's, like those kinds of things. His election just put that mirror front and center. It's like it just follows you around wherever you go. Yeah. There's no getting away from it.
Okay, we're not as far, ahead as we like to think. I wanted to quickly, you told me something I didn't know in the podcast. You talked about how in Punjab, where your family is originally from, my family as well, that what you were talking about how schools, and you were talking about what the literacy rate was like. Can you please dive into that quickly?
So there was a Muslim scholar, and I was reading his article. A friend of mine forwarded it to me, and he was sharing that prior to Britain occupying Punjab, there were schools attached to every spiritual path, their sacred homes, right? So to a masjid, to a mandir, to a gurdwara, to any other faith, and schools were open to everyone. So there was an incredibly high, if my memory serves me correctly, it was over 90% of women were literate in Punjab. So they had the ability to read and write and be able to advocate for themselves. And I know from a Sikh perspective, women were in every echelon of power and decision-making in society. And
then what happened?
Well, the British came.
Oh, man, that's like a common theme for most of my conversations.
They came. So I want to say in some ways, but there's also a blessing, because in 2018, we Sikhs have lost a lot of our texts and, sacred relics, etc. in Punjab. And the ones that have survived are in private collections in Britain.
I'm going to be going and visiting that too.
So I'm going to say there's that, like today, if we need to go look for something, we can at least check.
At least they preserved it.
They preserved it.
They broke a lot of things, but they preserved something.
They're good at preserving relics and history, at least that part, right?
Thank God.
So they went village to village, and they had an order to dismantle the education system in Punjab. It was apparently far more advanced than the one that existed in England. And because again, this is 1850. They had, I don't even think women had gotten the right to vote yet in England. So they took the Gabe, which is the primer. Right? So that's where we learn our alphabet, our first words, first sounds, all that. And they were burned. They began a book burning program to prevent children to learn the language in their homes, and then you were not allowed to go to school. Only certain boys were allowed of certain families, and you were able to then install, it's very effective, install divisions and install divisions between the genders, power over women, and power over different segments of society.
And that's why, again, going back to how we talk about 2017, these are all things that have been really just boiling over. It's been getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? One other thing that I wanted to discuss, actually two things, but one thing that you've been talking about for a while has been this accomplice thing. Right. So what's the difference between, because everyone right now is like, I'm an ally. I'm a man. I'm an ally for women. I'm an ally for LGBTQ rights, whatever it may be. But you have a different spin on things.
I got introduced by someone from the LGBTQ community, the concept of an accomplice. And so he asked this question of, would you consider yourself being an accomplice rather than an ally? And then he just opened up for me a bit of a personal journey of going, okay, so yes, I can be an accomplice, but I realized I had very firm boundaries. So I cannot be an accomplice to fighting racism with racism, sexism with sexism, hate with hate, exclusion with exclusion, right? I can't do any of that. And I cannot be an accomplice to embracing the victim identity and helplessness. I can't do that.
And it doesn't get you anywhere.
No. And so once those boundaries were super clear, that I'm like, yeah, I can be an accomplice as long as we're committed to seeing the humanity in the other person, regardless of what the labels happen to be. And as long as we're willing to create a place to listen, the other person will demonstrate whether they're open or not, right? Whether they're willing to build a bridge, because I can't make anyone build a bridge. But I can keep the door open to those that want to. It's definitely, you've got to connect to do that. But what I'm committing to doing is, I'm not the one that's going to shut that door down. I'm not the one that's going to, make someone feel bad or belittle them and put them down, etc., because of deep pain within myself. That is what I'm not willing to do.
I love that. You also said racism against racism, but Sukhvinder, I'm brown. I can't be racist. I'm so confused. What do you mean? I can't be racist. Right? You talked about that as well. So we were saying, when you were young, what happened when you were young in elementary school?
The worst racism that I experienced was from other brown kids. I was a little girl. I wore a turban to school starting at age 6. And I didn't have any problems in 100 Mile. But we were families who really knew each other and had a lot. But we moved from there. We moved to other communities, and it was hard. There was like a lot of brown kids that were not accepting, so to see brown on brown racism, to me, that is a reality I very much grew up in. And I found a lot of white people were frankly far less racist. So I know for me, I've been, talking with other Punjabi families and saying, hey, do you think there's racism in the Punjabi community? And I haven't heard a no yet.
No, I haven't either. I haven't asked you yet.
And then the next question I'll say, do you think we should do something about it? Oh, yeah. Right. So that's my, and I'm like, okay, so we need to expand our Canadian conversation to include racism by people of color and between people of color.
Oh, I love that. You got to say that again.
Right?
Racism by people of color?
And between people of color.
Yes. Okay, yes.
Okay, to add it to the current traditional conversation of racism by people who are white. But we also then need to include racism between white people.
That which exists.
Right? So because it's human to human interactions. That's our racism, right? It's between human beings. And so we need to, in addition to the traditional conversation, let's expand it. I'm not interested in instead ofs. Let's just expand in addition to.
That's a wonderful thought. Like, that's something that I agree with wholeheartedly. And to end off the video, I was going to say that basically what's going on January 28th?
So January 28th, would love to invite everybody. You're welcome to come out. We're doing another transformational evening through music, storytelling on January 28th. So doors open at 3. At 3:30 to 5 is our music and musical evening and storytelling program. And then from 5 to 6 is dinner. And what this is where we have the Aboriginal Women's Drumming Group, along with Naad Foundation. They're coming to Singh Sabha Gurdwara. That's a Sikh Gurdwara. Our Gurdwaras are places of learning. So it's an evening of learning through song and story from many traditions, rooted starting with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. And we're going to talk about how can we create positive change? How can we show up now to make a difference from a place of positive change rather than destructive change?
I was at the first one. Was that the
in
first
July?
one?
That was the first.
Yeah.
It was our pilot program that we put together, and it was amazing.
I was there, and I was like, "This is fascinating." So again, I won't be there because I'll be in India.
Yes.
By the time this is released, too, I should be in India. Hopefully, everything's all good out there.
Yes.
But yeah, no. Anybody that is watching, please check it out. It's well worth your time, and expand your horizons. Listen to the podcast. We're going to have the link below for the event. And also, we're going to have some of Sukhvinder's information if you'd like to connect with her. Because I'm telling you, listen to the podcast first. You're going to grow a lot. You're going to learn a lot of things. We talked about echo chambers, with diverse echo chambers. And we talked about a lot of things, right? So check out the podcast. And we'll talk to you all soon. So thank you all for tuning in. And thank you, Sukhvinder.
Thank you.
Okay, peace. Thank you for watching our videos. Your support really means a lot to us. Check out our podcast and honestly check out the other conversations we've been having as well.